I know. I am aware of the impossibility that my chosen title implies. I felt the exact same confusion upon hearing my orders, but bear with me. If you would, hopefully, it'll come to make some sense. My hair is whipped violently back from my head with a blast of frozen wind as the helicopter ascends, lifting itself up and off the Arctic ground before the door has even fully closed. I grimace with the lurch in my stomach, muttering a quick prayer as we leave the earth behind. I'm not particularly religious, but I'll admit it, I'm scared. You find me at the tail end of a confusing and chaotic 24 hours. Yesterday morning, my military routine was disrupted by my superior's superior, and I was deliberately separated from the rest of my squadron. I was informed that I would be taking a brief hiatus from the NATO Rapid Reaction Corps here in Norway, and would be temporarily relocated to a coalition-based outpost in the Ural Mountains. The Urals, sir, I had replied, but that's in Russia, isn't it? That's right, he'd said levelly. NATO-Russian coalition. NATO-Russian coalition. I considered the existence of such a coalition incredibly unlikely, especially considering certain current geopolitical circumstances. And yet, here I am, on board a Royal Norwegian Air Force helicopter, departing from the air base at Bardufoss and in transit to the base at Orland, where one of NATO's finest will fly me directly into Russian airspace, across the country and towards the Urals, the mountain range that marks the border between European and Asian Russia. I feel sick, and not just because of the choppiness of the flight. I suffer through it. We arrive in Orland. I am bustled from one means of transport to another, out from the helicopter and into a plane, space enough inside for plenty. But aside from myself and the pilots, entirely empty. Another American, the pilot remarks as I clamber on board, pointing to the flag emblazoned across the arm of my uniform. He turns to his co-pilot and mutters something in Norwegian. I picked up a little of the language during my time in the country. I think he says something about a one bet. Excuse me, I ask as I buckle myself into my seat. The pilot turns to look at me again over his shoulder. The last 4 were Americans, he says simply. I'd have thought they were overdue for a European by now. Canadian maybe. Adam Smith. Yes. I reply, yes, that's me. Good, great. Well, here we go then, Adam. Fingers crossed we don't get shot down by any Moscow missiles, eh? I still don't understand. I shout out above the rising roar of the engine. No one's telling me a damn thing. Why am I going to Russia? Why do we have people stationed in the Urals? And they're not spies, right? They're working with Russians. So what the hell is going on? The co-pilot shoots me a sympathetic look. Secret information, friend, classified. We ferry the people to and fro, but that's all. He shifts and turns back to the runway ahead. But you're in for a rough couple of weeks, Smith. Maybe longer. Best of luck to you. And the aircraft begins its run between the mountains, clambering up and into the sky, the snow like little stars in the dark as we soar up high between them. I watch the little blinking lights on the sides of the wings. It's early as hell and the sun is still yet to rise. We soar through the darkness, and I settle into my seat, doing my best to try and grab a few hours of sleep. Not an easy thing to do when you're expecting to be blown out of sky at any given second. Burnt half to a crisp in the initial explosion, caught amidst billowing flames and plumes of smoke, plummeting in free fall towards the ice and rock below. I scratch the side of my neck, shifting in my seat. To be honest, I'm not even sure that I'm supposed to be here. I happen to share the exact same name as another Solider on the base. You see, a guy also named Adam Smith. In a further bizarrity, he was even born in the exact same town, just a few years apart. We've been mistaken for each other on numerous occasions. Not that we look anything alike. Of course, I doubt that even matters. We all look the same to the higher-ups. These misunderstandings have never been particularly consequential. They've always been remedied pretty promptly once they were pointed out, amusing to everyone else involved. Nothing quite like this has ever happened before, ever, and I've never noticed anyone disappearing from the base, despite what the pilot said. The last 4 were Americans. Why has nobody spoken about this before? Why is this the first I'm hearing about a joint US-Russian base? A base in Russia? Surely not. It makes no strategic sense. It's downright dangerous, but I am unable to come up with any concrete, logical theories, and so I spend the next few hours drifting in and out of bleary, unrestful sleep, tainted with disturbing dreams. The hours pass, the sun rises, and any real chance of sleep is lost. I drowsily watch through the window as the Urals appear beneath us below the layer of cloud. We fly overhead in a wide arc, And the pilots begin our descent, ears popping as we draw closer and closer to the side of a runway nestled amongst the mountains. Attached to what looks like a very modest military installation, the wheels judder against the asphalt. The plane trundles to a gradual stop. My heart hammers. Russia, well. The pilot says after a moment, "This is your stop." He unfastens and steps out of the cockpit. Stretching his legs, he pauses, and there is a poignant moment between us as he looks to me. Then he holds out his hand. I shake it. "Good luck, man," he says quietly. All traces of sleepiness are blasted back with a rush of wintry wind as the door clanks open. "Jesus," I shout out into the gale, shielding my eyes from the wind and frost as I make my careful way down the steps towards the ground. I am greeted there by two men, one American and one Russian. I salute, and both salute in return, saluted by a Russian on Russian soil. The American mutters something in Russian to his partner, then steps forwards. "Smith," he calls out loud above the winds. "Yes, sir," I shout back. "With me," he replies, turning and walking the length of the runway towards a collection of squat, low gray buildings. I hurry along after them, casting a quick look at our surroundings. There is nothing but gray and white, bleak, snowy mounds of rock, mountain, mist, and concrete. We head into one of the nearest buildings, revealing it to be a part of a corridor-connected network. I draw the door closed with some effort, and with the thud of the door, the roar of the gale is replaced by the quiet buzz of electric lights. The two officers do not stop walking, and I move to keep pace. "They'll want you up in the outpost before it gets dark tonight," the American says to me. "Grab some breakfast at the canteen. The wind is due to die down in an hour or so. Officer Sokolov will take you via helicopter to the closest available site, and will then lead you on foot from there to the outpost. You are to address him as sir whilst you are here. Is that understood?" I falter. "Yes, sir. But canteen is that way." The officer points. "Helicopter port is down there. I know you'll have a barrel of questions, Smith." And to none of them answered as frustrating, "But you have been assigned to the outpost. You will serve for 2 weeks' duty, possibly longer dependent on the weather. You are doing a duty to your country." He stops. He points again. "Canteen, Smith. It's that way." He claps me on the shoulder, and the discussion is done. Away they walk, leaving me fumbling for words like an idiot in the corridor of where exactly. I look around. Gray walls, noteboards, and signs, all written in Russian, of course, but I recognize a military installation when I see one. My stomach growls. I cannot deny my hunger, so I anxiously consider my predicament as I go to grab some food. I think I might be the only American in this section of the facility. The canteen is mostly empty, though there are a smattering of Russians at the far tables. Some shoot me glances. Most pay me no mind, so I mind my own business in turn, filling my stomach until it is time for the next rough leg of my journey. Since the beginning, since it first became aware back at Barjafas that I was going on something of an excursion, there's been this building, growing, gnawing knot of anxiety inside me, slowly spinning and tightening all the cords that it is attached to. Around it goes, around and around. The pressure rises. Another helicopter ride. The American officer bids me a rapid goodbye, and accompanied by the Russian Sokolov, I believe his name was, we are flown across the Urals, higher and higher. Sokolov gives me 2 pills to take en route. Acetazolamide, he mutters. Then, potassium. He points up to the sky. For altitude. I take them both. And then, after brief consideration, he hands me a small capsule box stuffed full of them. "In case of need," he says. And I thank him. The ice now broken, I risk a question. "I still don't understand, sir. This outpost, hidden away in the mountains. Why are there Americans here too? Why not just Russians? What makes this place in particular so important?" "International agreement," is the only response. "Secret, important." And then he leans back against the helicopter walls with his arms folded, eyes closed. I sigh quietly, assuming that this means he has deemed the matter closed. But as I turn to look out the window at the world below, he mutters one more quick phrase. "Monsters at the gate," he says, as the blades of the helicopter whir round and around and around. The helicopter goes as high as it can into the mountains. There are some decidedly nerve-inducing moments, but it at last brings us down onto a crude helipad in a cradle of stone. Upon our departure, we are then forced to walk to climb, almost for the bulk of the afternoon, then evening. My head hurts, and after a point I find myself wincing with almost every step. Not much further now, Sokolov says, as a sudden sharp gust blows snow into our faces. Hour to go. 90 minutes most. Sweat buds across my forehead. but I nod and continue the climb. 70 minutes later, the outpost itself at last shimmers into view through the fog. The mountain goes higher still, but from here we are given a commanding view of the rocky plains and outcrops, drops and cliffs all around. At least, we would be if the day was clear. At present, these juts of rock appear as little more than looming shadows through the mists. Flashes of color draw my eye, and I glance up, wearied, to see 5 flags above the outpost's roof, flapping in the wind. The one on the leftmost spire is the flag of the Russian Federation, bands of white, blue, and red. It's in pretty good condition, though the same cannot be said for the other flags, tattered and string-worn, past their best days. Beside the Russian flag is Old Glory herself, the stars and stripes. To its right of this is the Union Jack, and to its right beyond is the flag of Norway. After that is an empty spire. And then there's one more flag at the far end, and this is the NATO ensign, white and navy. As I said before, these latter 4 flags have seen better days. These flags are almost the outpost's tallest points, beaten by a lightning rod, and what looks like a standalone tower a little further out across the mountain, partly shrouded in fog. If I squint, I think I can just about make out a lightning rod of the tower's own. The outpost itself is a series of closely clustered, roughly rectangular black-gray buildings. There is a white, scratched-up tank attached to the wall of one of these buildings, linked up with pipes. I cannot see all the way around the outpost from here, but it looks like it might be built right up to the edge of the cliff on the other side, and likely hangs over a steep drop. There are a couple of standalone sheds, an aerial dish or two, and what looks like the wreck of what might once have been a water tower off to one side. Sokolov clicks his tongue and mutters something under his breath when he sees it. This collapsed structure is not the most interesting feature of this outpost up here in the mountains, however, nor are the curious combination of flags waving in the wind. There are 3 key features that alert my sense of curiosity the most. The first is the low, circular wall that borders the outpost's perimeter. It only comes up to about waist height, and the officer and I are able to clamber over it easily enough. But the surface is completely covered in chalk. Once we've crossed, I watch with uncertain interest as Sokolov carefully ensures that our hand and footprints have been scrubbed away, using his fingers to re-smooth out the layer of chalk. The second of these 3 features are the symbols and scrawlings drawn all across the body of the outpost itself. Most of these drawings are crosses, but amongst them I spy multiple wheels, watchful eyes, moons and suns. I see stars of David, an eagle with widespread wings, and what appear to be a whole horde of ancient, Slavic, or maybe Celtic runes. But the aspect that gives me the most cause for alarm is the object attached to the side of the outpost, about 12 or so feet off the ground, and clearly connected through to its interior. It is, to put it bluntly, an enormous gun. It has the appearance of a massive, white-gray rifle, like something a giant would wield, though its exact make is not one I'm familiar with. I've never seen such a design in my life. A wall too low to keep people out, religious graffiti, and the world's largest gun. I do not have long to dwell on these abnormalities, as we have now approached the outer gate of the complex. Sokolov presses the side of his hand against a buzzer, an action he repeats 4 or 5 quick times. As we wait for a response, he turns to me and scratches his jaw, regarding me, looking me up and down, as if properly seeing me for the first real time, assessing me as an individual. "Think good thoughts," he says eventually, tapping the side of his head. It helps. I don't respond. I only nod, unsure of what to say. The gate makes a dull whirring sound, and then, after a series of clicks, it grinds and clanks open. 2 disheveled-looking individuals greet us, both with American flags on their uniforms. A man and a woman. The man breathes in the cool mountain air and laughs. He clasps hands with the woman, smiling at her. She smiles back. They are the first smiles I've seen in days. He strides out into the cold and greets Sokolov with a salute. "Great God, it's good to see you again, sir." The officer grunts and nods and returns the salute, nodding to the woman in turn. She drops her own salute, and her eyes go to mine, looking me over with curiosity. I squirm beneath her gaze. I look away, and the American man turns to me. Pity flashes across his face. "Best of luck to you, man," he says. "Don't let your guard down in there." He makes a movement, as if to place a hand on my shoulder, then decides against it. "Thanks," I reply awkwardly. "I'll keep that in mind." And then I watch, bewildered, as he hoists his backpack up higher on his shoulders, and with Sokolov starts to head out, back across the outpost's grounds towards that low little wall. Back, presumably down the side of the mountain. As they walk away, Sokolov turns to me and points. I will return 2 weeks' time when duty is done. Do not die, he shouts, and that's all the goodbye I am given. Away he goes. The two men fading gradually into the fog. I slowly turn back to look at the woman. She's still regarding me, head cocked at a slight angle. She's about my age, maybe a little older. After a beat, she sticks out her hand for me to shake. April, she says. Hi, yeah, nice to meet you. Adam, she nods. Come with me, Adam. Welcome to the outpost. She glances at her watch as she leads us inside, shutting the gate up tight behind her. We have about an hour till sundown. Might be enough time, maybe not. She shrugs and sighs. She looks tired. Christian's in the tower right now, but the others are all around. I'll introduce you. Right, so. Am I the only new person? What's the deal with this place? The deal. She gives me another look. How much did they bother telling you? You into the supernatural, Adam? I laugh, though there isn't much humor behind it. The supernatural? No, can't say I am. HM. Is all she says. Classic. The outpost has several interlinked corridors and several defensive-style turrets jutting out through the walls, with sections of thick, dark glass or mesh that I hadn't noticed from the outside, which would allow one to peer out over the rock below. She shows me the various rooms, the storage facilities, the kitchens, and the comms room. One of the rooms is just stacked full of alcohol, vodka, mostly. So how many people are stationed here? I ask after a while. Russians and Americans together. What's that like? She shrugs. It is what it is. We're civil, I suppose. They keep to themselves. Mostly, the Russians. There's only 6 of us. Six people. For all this space and equipment. She nods. Only 6. Alina tells me that there used to be more, but it didn't quite work out. She makes a noise. I don't know what to make of Alina. There's something not quite right about her. Alina. April nods. Yeah, she's one of the Russians. They've been here longer. The Russians, I mean, their command makes them stay for 2 months at a time, whereas NATO only need to do 2 weeks. I think Alina's been here a little longer than that, though. What makes you say that? April again does not respond. She leads us into a wide, hexagonal room. 6 walls. My mouth drops open, and I am forced to compose myself as I look around. 3 of these walls are comprised of hard glass, framed and reinforced with concrete. They look out over incredibly sharp, steep drops. It's difficult to tell how far down they go from my current position in the room, but it looks pretty damned far to me. Pillars of cracked rock and narrow, unstable-looking mountain arches lead away into the mist. A person could probably walk across one if they were brave to jump across the gaps and go foot in front of foot. There are stairs built into the walls here, leading up to what appears to be a higher level. I glance up to catch a glimpse of the edges of further defensive turrets. The room is lined with weaponry. There are crosses nailed to the walls. I count multiple maps, one of the surrounding mountains, one of Russia, and one of the world. This final map is intersected with dozens of gently curving, looping lines. There's a collection of framed pictures on the wall. Most seem to have been taken in or around this outpost, and in the room's center, on an old wooden table, is a pile of what appear to be Bibles. And as I consider this, I find myself being searched by 3 pairs of interested eyes. 2 men have looked up at me from their game of cards. One has the Russian insignia, the other has British. The Russian man's expression does not change, but the Brit raises a hand in greeting. Hello, mate, he says. Pleasure to meet you. Hey, I reply. How's it going? Drugoy Amerikanets, the Russian mutters, his interest already lost, returned to his hand of cards. This is Charlie, April says to me, pointing at the British guy. And that's Yuri. A woman near the back of the room rises to a stand. Hello, she says, her accent thick. Welcome. She does not sound particularly welcoming. Her tone is ice. I take her in. She's tall, long blonde hair kept mostly in a ponytail. It goes all the way down her back. I don't know how old she is. 30 seconds, maybe. She is beautiful, I decide, but for a curved, brutal scar across her face. It goes down her right cheek, through both of her lips, and finishes at the edge of her chin. And her eyes are piercing, full of icy judgment. She mutters something in Russian and Yuri chuckles around his cigarette in response. Don't be a bitch, Alina, Charlie chides, though there's no heart in his words. And yeah, that's Alina. April gestures to the woman in question without looking at her. Alina holds her stance, arms crossed, and staring right at me. Christian's the 6th. But as I said, he's up in the tower right now. There always needs to be at least one person in the tower. Duty 5. So what is all this? I ask, unable to keep my frustrations held back any longer. I've done nothing but get bustled about from place to place all damn day. I'm tired, I'm scared, and I want to know what the hell it is that I'll be doing. What are our duties? Who's in command? There is no command here. We are the outpost. Elena replies before April can answer. Our orders are constant. Command defer to our judgment. Duties. There are five duties. She lists them off. 5. Keep constant presence in the tower. 4. Do not leave outer ring of the outpost after sundown. 3. Do not use weaponry beyond outer ring. 2. Do not engage verbally with the enemy. 1. Defend outpost. Do not allow enemy into the outpost. I listen as she goes through them. So who's the enemy, then? I ask, looking from face to face. The Chinese, or what? They seem to find this amusing. My question creates a ripple of laughter around the room. The Chinese, Elena repeats. Charlie chuckles and grins wide. Dalbob, Yuri mutters, shaking his head as he flicks through his cards. There is no point in telling you who enemy is, Elena says, the grin quickly fading from her face. You won't believe. They never believe. You will have to see for yourself. She holds up a hand and raises her forefinger. First night. You stay out of the way. Observe and watch. Yes, April turns to me. Probably for the best. Adam. Oh, she announces this to the group. This is Adam, by the way. No one responds. You hear me? Yes. Elena asks again. Watch. Observe. Do not get in way. Sun will be down soon, lads. Charlie murmurs, checking his watch and reluctantly conceding his game to Yuri. Better get to our stations. Come to my station tonight. Adam, April says as the others all climb to their feet, sorting their equipment. And here, do me a favor and take this. She draws from her pocket a cross on a silver chain, and she passes it to me. I'm not really all that religious, I reply. Elena snorts as she walks past. You will be, she murmurs. I really don't know what to make of all this, so I accept the gift of the cross and prepare my weapon, as I'm not sure what else to do. The minutes tick by, and before I know it, I find myself perched on a section of the outpost's roof, shivering with cold and blood-iced. April sits next to me. I can just about make out Charlie, or perhaps Yuri, at one of the other stations a little further out into the darkness. But I cannot see Elena. Below us and out to the sides are the vast drops of the mountain, like a gaping jaw, looming up from beneath. Ice and snow and shadow. The mists have cleared somewhat, and the starlight-tipped edges of mountains glimmer warningly far away into the distance. As I regard this abyss, a slow, cold terror begins to creep its way into my bones, a terror I find hard to describe. They'll be coming now, April whispers in a voice that sends goosebumps shivering up my spine. And away, in the darkness, a deep, low voice begins to sing.